Move your body to the spot. Don't you run away, don't run from me. Run away, don't run from me. Bring it up. Move your body to the spot. Don't you run away, don't run from me. Run away, don't run from me. Run away, don't run from me. I'm finally in my chemistry. She know that she just out of freak. Let's go to the hotel. We wondering if you like to drink. Can I have a little taste in between the middle like a cupcake, baby? It's a trait. Feast to feast and I'm leeching. Prayer, prayer, can you reach me? Ooh, na the middle. I'm back in this bitch like Bruce Willis. I'm back in the rhythm. I'm back in the rhythm. Wait. What you talking about? I'm back in the rhythm. I'm back in the rhythm. What you talking about? I'm back in the rhythm, back to getting better. You know how I finish? I'm back in this bitch tripping. Off the task, she got it, but not with the dishes. Stay 10 toes down, let my new feet. Get rid of readings, pretend we ain't see shit. Get mad when they hit my DM. It's me, but you gotta meet in. Who's right around 10? Maybe we could get it in. Maybe grab a couple of friends. Maybe I could get a win. So we can have a party. Got champagne and Bacardi. You know you like to. I know I like to run. You balled up your emotion. I'm balled up with these potions. You know my vibe ain't normal, so don't come around me stank. I don't have to get my way. Mother, I'm paid. I'm back in the rhythm. I'm back in the rhythm. Wait. What you talking about? I'm back in the rhythm. What you talking about? Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Of course, that's my man Chance. He's back, and so am I. Back in the middle of all of this. I gotta let you know right about now. You're hanging out with us here on Videos and Voices of the Unheard. We are 2V Stream, a global youth media initiative. I am, of course, the unstoppable Joe Ugly, the Dean of the Independent. I'm going to leave that part out. But we got a great show lineup here for you, as usual, by the way. I have in the studios with me the Right Reverend Minister, Pastor, Counselor, Superhero of the Past.
Wow. That's a lot.
Oh, man. He is also the pastor of Emmanuel Missionary Baptist Church here in New Haven, Connecticut, in case you're listening to us from outside the area. My man, Samuel T. and Russ Lee. It's great having you on here, first of all. Let me say that. Welcome to the new format.
Thank you.
While we keeping it ugly. I have to say, well, today's program is focused on leadership. I have three areas that I want to cover. One is leadership, politics, and of course, community. But speaking on leadership, the leadership in the black community came from, or should I say, used to come from the pulpits of the black churches. It was where we build economics, social structure, and of course, our politics. And since you've been involved in, or should I say, since you've been in the area, you've been involved in politics now, pretty much. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the current climate of politics? We could start local, go national, and then we could slide into international if you want to. I know you have a broad range on it. Your thoughts on local politics? We could start there.
New Haven.
New Haven or the state of Connecticut. We have a very heated. This is the first time in a long time that I've seen some very heated state-run races. Like, for example, for the state treasurer, and we're talking about state the governor's race. You see a lot of these guys are really pushing to get in there. What do you think of what Ned Lamont has done for us here in the state of Connecticut so far?
Honestly, haven't really paid that much attention to that Ned Lamont.
Ned's doing so good, people don't even got to pay attention. It's because usually when you're not doing good, people got to realize.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
I haven't really paid that much attention to him.
Mhm.
The local politics here in New Haven.
Mhm.
I just think there needs to be. I'm not necessarily a fan of our present executive
Mhm.
position.
Mhm.
I think we need some structural changes
Mhm.
in that. We have the charter review
Mhm.
coming up this year that happens every 10 years. I was on a charter review in 2002.
So just for those who don't know what the charter review is, and of course I have a good understanding of it. It is of course through the Board of Orders. Could you please just elaborate a little?
It's basically the city's constitution.
Best way put.
Yeah, the city's constitution.
Mhm.
I didn't know much about New Haven because I just got here in 2001.
Mhm.
But I was asked to be on the charter review then. And one of the main things that we proposed was a 4-year term for the office of mayor.
Mhm.
It got turned down because I think, they put the whole thing out there as one vote, because there were other changes that were suggested.
Mhm.
Instead of letting things, get changed or voted on piece by piece.
Mhm.
And so the whole thing got turned down. A lot of work went into that,
Mhm.
but the whole thing got turned down. I think that position needs a 4-year term,
Mhm.
and I think people get caught up in the person in office as opposed to the concept of a 4-year executive mayoral position in this city.
Wait, let me ask. Do you think that it's because someone knows that they only have 2 years to get the mission accomplished, that they will be more focused on getting the mission accomplished, or at least trying, than if they have 4 years where they figure, I'm gonna. And it happens a lot. You see it in state houses that have 4 years. You see it in the presidency where they don't go to work, or if they go to work for the first year or so to keep the campaign spirit going, and then they go to sleep for about a year or so, and then next thing they're on the campaign trail. Do you think that a 2-year term drives them to do something?
It certainly drives them to do something.
Okay.
But the something doesn't necessarily have to be, it's not necessarily something that's substantive
Okay.
or authentic.
Mhm.
Doing something, we try to kind of throw that term around, that phrase around a lot, let's get something done.
Right.
It bothers me because when you say something could be anything.
Okay.
But and so yes, if you're a politician, you want to get something done, or at least have the appearance of something being done, because you get to use that when you run for the next time you run. But if the person who is in office is constantly on this campaign trail, especially, I think that's a very different thing when you're talking about, say, Congress, for example, because it's not just one person responsible. That's a whole group of people who are responsible for doing stuff. But when you have one executive person in a position who has to run every 2 years, they are working for a year and then they're running for office again. I think our issues are more complex than voters like to think about, or that we want. We're instant gratification society and culture.
Correct.
In America.
Correct.
Is, and so we want these things to be done, but that's not the reality of what actually can happen. Regardless of who the person is in office, whether it's somebody I support, somebody I don't support. When we were doing it the first time, it wasn't a person in office I necessarily supported, but I was thinking beyond that person. I'm the same thing is true for me today. Thinking beyond that person and saying, if you're going to put the person in office, if you have enough confidence in putting them in office, give them the time to get things done, as opposed to rushing something through or rushing a facade out there because they got to get elected 2 years from now.
I see what you're saying. I think well, there, I think politicians do a better job when they know they have some form of term limits as well. Well, there's because you have people who get in there like the um, three mayors back was there for 20 years here in the city of New Haven. Uh, Term limits is something that's needed, and I agree with you with 4 years. But think, for example, Virginia's term limit. You only get one term.
Yes, which I think is ridiculous
It's totally
for a
ridiculous.
governor.
But yeah, this is where we see we come out here. I guess this fall under the getting something done umbrella. I guess someone wanted term limits, and I said, "Oh yeah, give them one term." Well, what's the incentive for them to work when they get in office?
Right. Right, because
Yeah.
they don't have any. They can't stand for reelection.
Right.
So yeah, they don't have any incentive to do anything because they don't have to stand back in front of the public again.
Correct.
That's the danger
Mhm.
that a lot of people are thinking about for a second term for Donald Trump, for example.
Mm.
He gets back in there again. We've seen what he did the first time,
Right.
and the second time he doesn't have to worry about coming back in front of the public. So there's no telling what kind of stuff he'll do.
Mhm.
But you can have a 4 year, 8 year term limit or whatever,
Mhm.
for the office of mayor, particularly if it's an executive position. You have some cities
Mhm.
where
Executive is
the
for, and
executive council or
legislative
whatever
is
doing the work, and the mayor
right.
is a figurehead in a lot of ways.
Right. Right.
He's got to promote the city, and yay, we're a great place to live, that kind of stuff. Okay, fine, give that person 2 years.
Mhm.
But the person who actually has the responsibility of doing the work,
Mhm.
they need a 4 year term.
Figureheads positions. I think what's her name? Saxon Perry out of Hartford. She was here before your time. I don't know if you know her. She
Doesn't sound like a name.
but that position, Hartford mayor, was a ceremonial position,
Mhm.
highly ceremonial. She came in and made it something.
Mhm.
Way went away. Oh, they kill each other for that now. They really and truly do.
How did she
So-
do that? I mean, did she change the
Well,
had the charter change?
she pushed her charter change one, and then they went in and started doing things for the city.
Right.
So it went away from just being the legislative side. The executive branch really had a true power, and it really worked great in Hartford. Now, same thing with the state treasurer's position. Although it had a where the person could do good work, it was ceremonial in the sense of you were really the people behind the scenes who were really running the state treasury. The state treasurer themselves weren't until a fellow by the name of Hank Parker came along, and he changed that. Jerry Lamb was the first black state treasurer before him, and Jerry Lamb used to be a vice president of Connecticut Bank and Trust, old bank that's going now. It's all part of Skank of America, but but when he came in, what he did, Hank Parker, I'm speaking of, like he did like the sister state program and started doing all types, investing in different things. Now all of a sudden, people were like, I mean, he was doing spearheading what a true executive should be doing in that position. Now all of a sudden, it's a fort. You see the ads now running on television.
Right.
They are fighting for that seat. That chair is, oh man, to die for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand the whole point of ceremonial
Right.
positions and elected people for some ceremonial stuff. If you're going to elect them to be in office, they should have a responsibility.
Right.
They should have a job to do.
Concur.
And then you are able to judge them on that job if they're going to run for reelection.
Mhm.
But they should have that opportunity to run for reelection, and the amount of time that they're in office shouldn't be so small. I don't know when New Haven started the 2 year term thing. I don't know if that's always.
I think
the
it's
case.
always.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so that I think that's why it's problematic because
Right.
back in the day, and we're
Right.
talking back in the day,
When the only people in the city had the
Uh,
right to vote was white Anglo-Saxon male.
right? That's the thing.
You know?
And you don't have the complexity of realities.
Mhm.
Now, people have got to stop thinking inside their box, the box that they engage in, or they live in, or they, whatever, and know that the box that you're living in is being impacted by things outside of your box.
Right.
And so the things outside of your box that are impactful to what's in the box needs to change,
Mhm.
or some of the realities that are in the box. And we're not doing that because people are acting like, well, that's what they're doing. But
Mhm.
what they're doing has an impact
Mhm.
on what you should be doing, if you're going to keep up with a reality and a world that's changing all around you, and that's affecting the reality of where you are.
The funny thing about what you're saying is that when I hear the so-called progressives still want to hold on as if they want to conserve, if I may, some, form ideology of of bygone years in their time.
Right. And people have got to start defining these terms.
Mm-hmm.
And, the terms, the slogans, all this kind of stuff,
Mhm.
because people are taking slogans that come from one group and make it something completely different. People are using labels and titles, and it's like, what do you mean when you say progressive?
Mm.
What do you mean when you say conservative?
Mm-hmm.
So that we can put some reality to what you're talking about, and then see if your behavior is matching that reality and not just some amorphous title
Mm-hmm.
that could mean anything, and that's problematic.
It kills me when you do ask the conservative, well, what's the conservative? What's conservative to
What
you?
are you trying to conserve?
Exactly. What exactly are you trying to conserve? And in order, first of all, I always say, in order, if you want to take a literal sense, in order for you to do anything, you must suspend your conservative belief to do anything. I don't care if I want to go to this door right here in the studio. I must suspend this space that I my conservative belief in staying in this space in order to get to that.
The last person I heard ask that question,
Yeah.
quite frankly, I heard ask that question. Maybe somebody has done it and I haven't heard it. But was Jesse Jackson in the Democratic National Convention when he made, I think it was the first time he ran for president.
Okay. 84.
We were in the military at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sitting in my barracks listening to that speech. Aside, brought me to tears. But he asked in that speech, what are you trying to conserve?
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard anybody answer that question.
Right.
But I definitely have heard it be asked.
Mm-hmm. I always ask a black man who I hear want to be a conservative, what are you trying to conserve?
Yeah.
Get in the back of the bus, nigga.
Right. What are you trying? But and to be balanced and fair,
mm-hmm.
the progressives needs to answer that question as well.
True.
What do you mean
when
you say you are progressive?
Exactly.
Because if you're progressive from antebellum days,
mm-hmm.
that ain't progressive for today.
Correct.
Because so those terms have to have a meaning in the context in which you're using them,
mm-hmm.
in the time space that you're using them,
mm-hmm.
or they're just meaningless.
People love these titles. That's what it all boils down to. It's a matter of titles. People love titles. I think it starts from the minute you get a trophy at Little League sports.
But what we're also doing with just using titles that you put no meaning behind is that you're constantly and consistently dumbing down the public.
True.
Okay. You don't make them have to think about what they are supporting when you talking about I'm conservative. Because if I'm conservative only means I'm against everything the so-called progressives do, mm-hmm. and progressive only means I'm against what the so-called conservative,
Well, there's no growth there.
There's nothing there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. People misunderstand what negotiations are really all about. My general stance on negotiation, a great negotiation is when both parties walk away feeling screwed. Because at least, somebody got something, and if both parties got something, but that was a great negotiation.
Well,
that's
one way to look at it. Because you could look at it the other way and say both of them walk away feeling good about what they got.
Right.
But you could also say, if you come to a table with different, perspectives on something, and you listen
mm-hmm.
To each other,
mm-hmm.
you might actually both can walk away feeling good.
That's a good point.
That
is a good point.
If you're actually listening, because we have these fantasy notions about who the enemy is and what the enemy is.
Correct.
What
Correct.
they think.
Correct.
They think so and so.
Right.
Well, how do you know that unless you're
engaging
in
right?
Way, or unless you see them doing something
right.
that can justify what you're calling them.
Right.
We don't do that enough.
Well, there's a lot of things that we don't do, starting with critical thinking. This is something that, oh my God, we could start on that. And that could be a whole 3 hours back and forth on that. But it's the one essence that is so missing in our society.
It is definitely missing in our society. It is not being taught in our schools,
mm-hmm.
Which is a shame.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were saying earlier, the three R's
Mhm.
should be reading, writing, and reasoning.
Good point. Reasoning.
Not the made up, R called arithmetic,
right.
Which actually starts with an A, right? But yeah, we don't teach this, and
Yeah.
we need to. I didn't take a reasoning class until I was in college.
So for those who don't go to college or have not been to college, well, guess what? Your chances of understanding or getting exposed to reasoning in a formal setting is nil.
Right, and the only reason I was able to take that class because I was in the department I was in.
Correct.
In the philosophy department.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't teaching this necessarily in a formal way in the English
one of the
department
science
or the science,
mm-hmm.
this sort of thing. They're teaching you how to do things that
mm-hmm.
fit that reality.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this other reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I went to a liberal arts college.
Mm-hmm.
That should have been one of the general requirement studies.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
General study requirement. But it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be. Because people don't know how to reason. They don't know how to critically think.
Right.
They know how to emotionally engage.
And if you know how to critically think, it can control those emotional thinking. It's because now you know how to reason stuff. You get a clearer understanding of the other person's point of view. Or
yes.
At least you get some kind of understanding.
Right.
Maybe that'll be fully clear, but you get some form of understanding.
Well, first of all, if you're going to reason, you're going to think critically, you got to listen
mm-hmm.
to what the other person is saying, what the
mm-hmm.
other person is talking about. And, and ask questions, sometimes. Because sometimes, people will say things they think is so clear,
mm-hmm.
so simple.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody asks a question about it and they get offended.
So true.
What are you trying to do? What are you trying? No, I'm trying to understand.
You're trying to make me look dumb. You're trying to make me look dumb.
But, I was getting ready to say something else. I forgot it. But the study of logic,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know all of the logical fallacies. There's a whole lot of them, but the ability to get into that space. This is the other thing I was going to say. We have done this bifurcation thing within our society, within our culture, and we got it from other cultures that emotion
mm-hmm.
is somehow antithetical to reasoning.
True.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
Total disagree.
I think one can be emotional and be reasonable and rational.
Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, if you have no emotion attached to what you are presenting,
correct.
Why
are
you presenting it?
Now let's implement, if I can speak, let's implement the word race or racism, whichever feels best, into that. Once you start expressing how you feel and you are a black man, or then it's really pressed down upon you that, you're being violent.
Well, yeah, you calm down,
yeah, exactly.
And the most the smallest amount of expression of irritation or frustration or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, calm down.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole nother trope that created from the notion of the angry black man, whole
mm-hmm.
9 yards, so that
mm-hmm.
the slightest irritation or frustration
mm-hmm.
has to be stopped, has to be
right,
calmed down. And you look at some of these movies, a lot of people don't like watching the slave movies and stuff. I do like watching.
It's so hard for me lately.
Yeah, it is very hard.
Oh God,
watching a lot of it. But I'm not necessarily just watching the story.
Uh-huh.
I'm watching the nuances of things that are happening. When the overseer says to one of the Africans. One of the Africans held hostage on a southern plantation.
Okay.
I know it's more words than
Yeah, well, go ahead.
I'm
right.
still gonna say it.
I hear you. I don't mind you. You got all the time.
He asks a question and the person responds, and he goes, "You think you smarter than me, don't you, boy?" What was the thing that person did that made you feel that way? So you're talking about how you feel, not
mm-hmm.
what that person has done. And that has carried on. It has carried forward so that I feel a certain kind of way about this person being frustrated or irritated or whatever. Mm-hmm. You're never concerned about why that
mm-hmm.
person is frustrated, why that person is irritated. You're focused on how you feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
So now we got to shut you down.
Correct.
You got to be quiet.
Dancing back to voting, one of the things that really annoyed the daylights out of me is whenever I hear someone say something as stupid as "my vote don't count." Really?
Mhm.
Voting voting is your responsibility. It's not someone else's. So if your vote don't count, it's because you haven't voted. It when you don't vote, then of course your vote wouldn't count.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
people say if your vote doesn't don't count, why are they trying to take it away from you?
right?
But I think when people say, the my vote don't count thing, they're looking at, the individual, not the group, because the work that people are trying to do to suppress vote,
hmm
they're not trying to suppress a vote. They're trying to suppress votes.
But if the individual truly, and this is where critical thinking comes in, and tying critical thinking with civics, then you clearly understand that your vote does count because when you vote, you're not speaking individually; it's a collective voice.
If a collective is voting, yes, yeah, your vote is joining the collective.
Right.
Um, but we also have to consider, and there are cases in which the response to certain things
hmm
should not simply be, I don't want to say simply, but it should not be, I'm going to change your perspective on this. It should be, why are you thinking this way?
hmm
Let's get inside of that.
And that's where the civics comes in because the lack of knowledge
No,
is on civics is why people start believing their vote don't count.
no. I don't think so.
Okay, then
When you're
share with
talking
me.
about the individual,
hmm
the individual could believe that based on the fact that they went and voted, and even the person that they voted for got in office, and they didn't see any changes.
Well, what
They
would it
didn't-
change? First of all,
No. It doesn't matter. We're talking broadly now. If you
Okay.
if you start bringing it to a specific, that's going to taint the overall reality of the situation. But if you're talking broadly, just an anonymous person, an amorphous person who says this sort of thing,
Mhm.
and they say, "I voted. The person I voted for got in office, and I didn't see anything happen." That's where the conversation needs to start. What were you expecting to see
Right.
happen? Um, why don't you think that thing happened? Do you think that the person that you voted for was trying to make that thing happen? Having those kind of conversations.
Mhm.
When we start talking about the reality of a particular situation, not civics in general, but civic small c. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Okay, so if you have a person in office who the other party has more, has the majority in various places, maybe that's why your thing didn't happen.
Mhm.
But the person that you voted for wanted the same things you did and tried to do that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Did your thing not happen because the person that you voted for didn't think that's the way it should have happened, or they were trying to do something else, and maybe you should have voted for somebody else. But you got to start with the specifics and the particularities of that particular situation for that particular person in that particular time that they voted, and what happens right after they voted, to start trying to show them why they didn't possibly get the changes that they expected, or whatever they were looking for from their vote.
This is where I say the understanding the civics part comes in because what you just did was give a quick civics class.
Yes, but I'm talking civics small c and not civics big
C. Well, even understanding civics small c is still not in the process of voting. People hear, oh, vote, 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 and they don't understand that. Well, for starters, they don't understand that their vote is actually an employment, a check on somebody's employment. They don't, and that which means that when you put someone in office, you're literally employing them. So you have that right to follow up on them. You have that right to pick up the phone and find out. Some people don't even know the numbers to their email address to their congressperson or to their city legislator.
They don't know where to get it because it's not something you need to have rolling around in your head. But you can go online and look that up.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. They don't even know they have access to these individuals, let alone to know that there's somewhere I can go and get it. They think that they're in office and they're supposed to just do a good job. But like you said, they may not be able to do a good job. And this is where, when people get in office, by communicating with them, you find yourself understanding why they did not vote on something that you wanted them to vote on, because maybe they could explain it to you, or maybe you could say, but you still could have done this.
Right. You also have, that I didn't mention is the frustration.
Mhm.
I am frustrated,
Mhm.
for example, with the Democrats.
Okay.
I'm frustrated with them because they sat and acted as if things were.
Is this national or local?
National, definitely.
Okay.
They sat and acted as if things were protected that they didn't do anything to protect. Roe v.
Break it
Wade,
down for me.
for example.
Oh, okay.
You sat and watched the Republicans outmaneuver you
Mm-hmm.
in getting justices into the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
You voted for people who came from a particular background and said to you, I'm going to respect the precedents of
Mhm.
Roe v. Wade.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got on the court and did just the opposite.
Right.
The Republicans don't do that.
Mhm.
Some of the Republicans didn't vote for Ketanji Brown Jackson, for example, because she was a public defender. For no other reason.
Mhm.
She was a public defender. So we believe she has a perspective, or she has a inclination or whatever towards helping criminals.
Right.
So we're not going to vote for her. But Democrats give the benefit of the doubt far too often, and allow what happened happen instead of fighting against it. I mean, it's not a matter of whether you're going to win the fight all the time, because sometimes they were outnumbered. They were going to get into office anyway. Put up the fight.
Rather go down fighting than to just sit back and let it roll over. But
I would rather die on my feet than to live on my knees.
Sounds great.
Respect.
And that is so true. But we often find the Democrats in particular not knowing how to communicate with the average person.
They don't seem They don't seem to know how to communicate with themselves a lot of times. Too.
That's a good point. Good point. I agree. But I often say they speak like they're pilots, 30,000 feet in the air. Land the plane sometimes.
Yeah.
And let the people know exactly what it is you've done. Look how long it took them to start telling the public all the accomplishments that they have made in the last year and a half.
Right.
Why the hell it took them so long? And right now, for example, now they want to make democracy. They were pushing democracy I'm talking about the National Democrats. They were pushing democracy as their forefront. They're one of their major running. And then as soon as the Republicans stop making it about the economy, gas prices, they run chasing behind that. And I'm like, why? If you're going to chase behind that, explain yourself.
Right.
It said, hey, wait a minute. It don't make a difference if gasoline is going to be 35 cents a gallon. If you have no democracy, how are you going to enjoy that?
Right. But and also, explain inflation. Inflation is not just happening here; it's happening out. But who was the last Democratic president who really, really did that well?
Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton.
And you know what they did? They ran from him.
That's right.
Bush.
They meaning the Democrats. Let's be very clear.
The Democrats ran from him.
Yep.
W was in office because Gore ran from Clinton.
Right.
I believe a part of Hillary's situation, not to mention the James Comey foolishness, but a part of her situation is that she ran away from him because I want to be this feminist. No, get in office.
Right.
I don't care how you get there,
and then do what you got to do.
Get there, because if you got a man who was
hold on. You just brought up something that is really so, and I'm going to give you a couple minutes to continue. But that alcohol thing, you are so damn right. What the? We'll talk on that in a second.
Right.
Go ahead.
You got a man who came from a small, poor state, ran against an incumbent, wealthy president,
generational,
not just generational wealth, but generational
politics,
office
Mhm.
thing that he does.
Yep.
So many things in government.
Not only him, his father.
That's
Prescott
generational
Bush.
part. But then the
Mhm.
stuff that he did
Right,
himself, he
right.
got all that right. Carrying this what they called at the time the bimbo explosion on his back,
Right.
and he won.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew he was going to win
Mhm.
when he did that comeback thing in New Hampshire. I think it was Iowa, New Hampshire.
New Hampshire,
So,
yes.
yeah, New
Yes,
Hampshire.
New Hampshire,
And
yes.
he came out there and made that last dog die speech.
Right.
Remember that?
Yes.
I'll stand because he was, throat was sore,
Yeah.
nose was red and big, like Rudolph. But he came out there and was like, if you stand with me, I'll be with you until the last dog die.
Yep.
I said at that moment, Clinton's going to the White House. Clinton is going to the White House. He knew how to speak to the public.
Mm-hmm.
He knew how to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
because there's two different things. You
Right.
got to communicate
Right.
with them.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't had a Democrat who's done that as well as him. Barack did it and is still doing it well.
Mm-hmm.
But no one has done it better than
Hold on,
Bill, I
baby.
think.
I'm gonna tell you how it's done.
Right. And y'all
Bill
ran
Clinton.
away from because the Republicans, if their people like that person,
Mm-hmm. They rolling to
Trump
the end.
was right.
Yeah. He
could
could shot someone
somebody
down
in
Fifth Avenue.
and not
Yep.
lost any votes.
Right.
His people are going to stay with him.
Mm-hmm.
The Democrats are too concerned about what Republicans are saying.
Right.
So you concerned about what they are saying about your
And they
guy.
always run the narrative. And the reason why they run the narrative is because they speak. Look, Republicans are excellent campaigners, terrible governors.
Right. Democrats
flip
the way around.
You flip it under Democrats.
Yeah.
They are great governors, terrible campaigners.
Right.
Because they always speak from 30,000 feet, one,
Right.
or they'll put their tails behind their back and chase the Republicans' narrative consistently.
Yeah.
And this
you're
goes
reactive. You're being
exactly totally reactive. Goes back to the Al Gore, Bill Clinton in 2000. We're talking about when Al Gore was the vice president of Bill Clinton's campaign. 8 years. They had 8 solid good years. And the economy was doing well because of the dot-com bubble. It popped in '99, but it didn't explode to the point of where Al Gore could not have ran the economy well because Bush came in with a surplus.
Yes.
So the bottom line is Al Gore could have done something.
Yes.
This guy went and burned through the money in Iraq.
Right.
Now
I'm gonna tell you who does speak plainly,
right?
but got they made fun of her, Elizabeth Warren.
Oh yeah.
She speaks plainly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once you get a mantra
Mm-hmm.
and you just keep repeating it,
Mm-hmm.
yes, they're going to make fun of that mantra. They're going to use that against you in some kind of way.
Or they'll create the mantra.
No, she created the mantra. I got a plan.
In her, yeah,
I got
in
a plan
her.
for that. I got a plan for that.
Right.
That was her thing. She was
Right.
saying, she kept saying that about everything. And okay, that's not a bad thing to have a plan, but they took the mantra.
But wait a minute, hold on. Before you go any further, is that a gender thing? When a woman come up, work with me a second. When women come up with a mantra, it's used against them. Barack Obama mantra was, what was his? Keep hope alive.
Yes, we can.
Oh, yes, we can. Keep hope alive. Oh no, that was Jesse Jackson. Keep hope. Yes, we can. Those are mantras,
right.
but those work for them. However, I remember here in 1986, a woman who was running for governor, Republican, by the name of Julie Balaga. She was running against Bill O'Neill, and her mantra was, "I can't wait to get into the state house. I can't wait to do this for you. I can't wait." And they used that against her.
Should have been clowned for that.
You think so?
It's good because here's the difference. With Elizabeth Warren saying, "I have a plan,"
Mm-hmm.
that statement itself
Mm-hmm.
suggests there's something behind this statement. That's not just a statement. If I have a plan,
Mm-hmm.
show me the plan. There's something that has to be buttressing that mantra.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to get in.
No, but I can't wait to get into do this. I can't wait. She just started with "I can't wait," but then she'll get into details about not like I would have ever voted for Julie Balaga.
I don't know if it's a gender thing or not. But here's the thing:
Mm-hmm.
anticipatory refutation. Democrats, I hope you're listening. Anticipatory refutation.
Mm-hmm.
Every argument has got to consider what the opponent is going to say about your argument, so that you have an argument to their argument about your argument. You have got to see the flaw in your argument or the weak parts of your argument
before they do.
To say, okay, when I say this is what they're going to say.
Right.
What am I going to say next?
Right.
Because you can't repeat the same thing. When you repeat the same thing, now it sounds like you just have nothing. They have ripped your argument down, and you don't have anything. Mondale destroyed one of I can't remember what the Democrat was when he said to him, where's the beef?
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah,
he just said that on a debate stage.
On the debate, yes.
His whole campaign crumbled on that one statement.
Yeah, I think it was Jerry Brown.
I think it may have been Jerry.
It might have been Jerry Brown.
Yeah.
Or Joe Biden.
No, it wasn't Biden.
No, Biden fell off because of the scandal of plagiarism.
The plagiarism, right?
Right.
The commercial was popular out there, whatever.
Right.
And he was like,
the Wendy's commercial.
Where's the beef?
Yeah.
Right?
But then he went on only one state, his home state of Missouri.
Because
Reagan ran the table.
Reagan comes along. Reagan knew that they were going to talk about his age.
That's right. He put
what did he do?
He right on the debate stage.
Said, I am not going to exploit age in this campaign and talk about my opponent's youth and inexperience. The crowd went crazy. That was the last time they talked about age. That's anticipatory refutation. I knew they were going to talk about this. What am I going to say when they say that? Democrats are not doing that. Democrats are also, and you're right, they're up and talking like pilots, like professors, because they want to talk big concepts.
Right.
Republicans talk big concepts in the back room. How are we going to sell this to the public?
It got to fit on a bumper sticker.
How are we going to talk to them about this in the public? And so that's got to be a part of the strategy.
Correct.
Part of the conversation. Yeah, get your kids from the Ivies and the great schools with the great grades and the summa cum laudes and all this kind of stuff to be on your campaign team. Don't bring the thesis that they wrote for their major and use it as your campaign rhetoric.
Because the Republicans have those same kids on their side. However, they break it down. You're right.
They got the same kids.
Oh no, they have. Oh no, they walk with a lot of Ivy leaguers.
Because see, the Republicans understand this very well. They go into office for rich and wealthy people. They're not enough rich, wealthy, people to get them in office. So they have to go to the other people because that's where the numbers are.
And let them know.
And when I go to the other people, what am I dealing with here? What kind of intelligence am I dealing with? What kind of thinking am I dealing with? What kind of attention span am I dealing with? It seems that the Democrats don't think about that. And that is what's so frustrating about them. And that could be another reason that people say, my vote don't count.
What do you think is going to be the outcome for with less than a week out or 6 days out? What do you anticipate?
I'm not.
You're not?
I think we talked about this off air a few days ago. I heard a guy on MSNBC talk about how the media is problematic because when they talk about these campaigns, they talk about people running. They do what he called the gamification of politics.
Yeah.
They don't give you substance about what these people are saying. They don't give you substance about the arguments against the arguments. They give you who's up, who's down, who's going in.
God, I can't stand these damn polls.
Who made a gaffe at the everybody's trying to be the person who in the 60s caught the fact that Nixon had on the wrong suit and didn't check the temperature, so he was sweating. Everybody's trying to have the next deep throat and golden fingers or whatever else they're looking for, right?
Bernstein and what's the name?
Right.
Woodruff
and Bernstein. Everybody's trying to do that. That's become the model, of the thing, as opposed to serving the public with good analysis of what's actually happening. This person said this. This is why what they said is important, it matters, and it fits with the facts. This person said this thing. It got a clap, but it doesn't fit with the facts, this kind of stuff. They are responding to millions of people based on what 100 people in the debate room did. Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, that's generally how
And
polls.
irresponsible.
And that's generally, I agree, but that's generally how polls. Yeah,
though,
you are. You're not. You're not. But every time I look at these polls out here, how again, I just before I even get to the polls, back to what you were just saying about the the news, the so-called news people, or the informative people.
The
Okay.
influencers,
Yeah, influencers. That's what they are. That's what they have become.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how many times a week I'm screaming at the television, follow-up question, follow-up question.
Right.
Give up. This is your job. I'm just a
Right.
loudmouth, I'm just a loudmouth on the mic, and I know how to give at least one follow-up question.
Right.
Follow up a question. They don't. Someone would feed them pure garbage, and they're like, "Well, the people would know." I'm like, "No, they wouldn't. They're looking for you to help them understand it. Why should people give you their time to look at your news, your so-called news, if you can't help them understand the story?"
You're the fourth wall.
Exactly.
That's your job.
That's your job.
Because other people have stuff to do.
Right.
They got to go to work. They got to pay bills. Got to feed their kids. Got to take care of their kids. Got to take the kids to the football game, soccer game, whatever. So when they get time to sit down and listen to this, you should have something of substance to say to them. I remember
that's the key right there.
Reporter,
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but that's the key. They don't have anything of substance.
No, because they have so dumbed down the country that they can't talk about substance and keep their audiences nowadays. That's where we really are. But I remember a reporter asking Obama a question. It was a press conference thing. I think it was in the press room, whatever. And I forgot what the question was about, whatever. But Obama said, "I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. What else do you think I should do?" And she just kind of sat there.
Because she had none.
And he goes, no, seriously, what else do you think I should do?
Because she had no other question.
Because
she was all going for the fluff, the soundbite. She was
going for the soundbite.
The soundbite. Yep, exactly.
And when Obama busted her for that,
exactly,
there was no there. And unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with. What else are we talking about? Community. You said something about community.
We could go on and on about politics. Politics is always a great thing. Community, our community, I'm speaking on the black community, of course. We see this thing of crime, and it ties back into politics. We see them pushing crime as such a major factor. And of course, every time that they show crime, they show a black face. And another thing is they use the stats of crime. And as I was explaining on a previous show, they take all the stats of crime and they compile it and then show something that's violent crime, not just petty crime. They took the stats of petty crime and violent crime, compile it, and then they take the imagery of a violent crime and then use that to conflict the story. And it happens so much. And our community is following that narrative. We start saying, crime is real high. Yeah, it's out there. And the stats are out there. You can read all the data. Okay, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who go out there and do read the data. And guess what? When I look at violent crime, it's not ticked up, but you want to know the real? I got the stats right here. Let's talk about crime for a second. You want to know the top 10 murder rates in the United States are run by Republicans?
Yes.
Starting with number 10, we could do the countdown real quick. Tennessee, 9.90%. Arkansas, 10.29%.
The top ones are the Republicans.
Yep.
Here's my problem.
He's like, just get to it.
Here's my problem with the issue about crime.
Mm-hmm.
We always talking about crime from the crime forward.
Right.
We never talk about, or we rarely talk about crime from the crime back.
Interceptions.
How did this happen in the first place? It's the perception or the perspective that I get from that methodology, if you want to call it that, is that you don't really want to stop crime. You just want to use it.
Right.
You want to use it to put black boys in jail and prison. You want to use it to get elected. You want to use it to redline communities, undervalue, and all this kind of stuff. You want to use it, but you do not want to stop it.
Correct.
Because if we know that prison beds are being counted based on third grade reading scores, we know that.
Right.
What are you doing about third grade reading scores?
Well, you always see the schools in the urban areas are always bad until they're ready to gentrify that neighborhood.
Right. What are you doing about
That's when the resources kick in for that.
The reality
right.
of that in which the crime, happens.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk and beat your fist about it doesn't matter what his age is. He did an adult crime and need to do adult time.
Mm-hmm.
And you never consider how is it that a 14-year-old
mm-hmm.
got a gun in his hand,
mm-hmm.
got the mentality to get a gun in his hand,
mm-hmm.
got the desire to get a gun in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Never talk about those realities. Never talk about those kinds of things because you do not want to change the reality of crime.
Mm-hmm.
You just want to use it
Correct.
for your benefit. And
that's exactly what they do. It is to their benefit to try to, and to always make sure that whenever you want to talk about crime, and that's the one thing that really grinds me, and I want to keep highlighting it. Every time they talk about crime, they keep throwing it back in our community.
Yes,
it's a constant.
And the people who deal with it, oftentimes, all too often in our community, are dealing with it in a one-dimensional way.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get some black kids, black mm-hmm. boys, or whatever, and preach stuff to them.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The reality of those who grew up from black boys to mm-hmm. black men we didn't know it at the time. We didn't have the words or the wisdom to put to the reality at the time. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is, we had a plethora mm-hmm. of situations that disciplined us, reinforced discipline to us, and I don't mean beating somebody with a belt, but mm-hmm. disciplining us, disciplining us, encouraging us, keeping us on the straight and narrow, mm-hmm. connection with parents. Mm-hmm. Like I say, my brother and I used to walk to the barbershop. We didn't my mother didn't just say, go to the barber. Mm. She called the barbershop.
Mm. My boys are coming.
They're coming.
Yeah.
So he knew what time we should have gotten there.
Right.
When we finished, he called the house. They're on their way home. Mm-hmm. She know what time we should get here, mm-hmm. get there. Simple stuff like that, mm-hmm. that a lot of these kids don't have.
Parental involvement.
But it's not just parental. That example is not just
That's
parental.
Right. That is community. That's is the
community.
Village. That's the village.
Right.
That is the true village. Yes.
In order for us to call the guy, she had to have his number.
Right.
In order for us to know when we go into the store and coming back, she had to have somebody who on that path and in that situation who know us and they know them.
Do you think that has changed because of its time when we were coming up? Our parents were more concerned about our safety in the sense
I
of
think the community was concerned
about your safety.
I think the community was concerned about safety. I think we had community churches.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that anymore.
Right.
The majority of people I think who go to Emmanuel don't live in New Haven.
Hmm.
We don't have community churches anymore. So the people in church are not even living with the people that they go to church with. So I may know your child, but I only know them in this environment.
Correct.
Listen, when I was at Morehouse in 87, I graduated in 88. 87, the president, Hugh Morris Gloucester, was the first alum to be president of Morehouse College. So he came in 67, and he retired in 87. So we had a guy there. His title was dramaturge in residence. He had been on Broadway, whatever, graduate from Morehouse. He used to do these plays. He did a play, the coordination play or whatever, that was around that time period, 67 to 87. I actually played Hugh Gloucester in the movie, in the play. Right? It's actually
of course.
It's actually it's actually not of course. There's a lot of talented people. Right? It's actually on YouTube somewhere. But anyway, so he has these little kids on the stage, and this is talking to people, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of, like a pilot. Two little kids. Mm-hmm. One kid goes to the other. She goes, what's integration? She goes, what's segregation? To the one little kid asked the other kid. Kid goes, segregation is where the teacher knows your mama and your daddy, and they go to church together, and all this kind of stuff. And he goes, well, what's integration? That's where the teacher don't know your mama or your daddy. we had community.
Oh, okay.
They went to church together. All of this kind of stuff. So when you went out as a child,
Well, was that a flip there that you just did?
what?
The integration is
segregation is when the teacher knew your mama and your dad.
Right. Okay.
And integration is when they didn't.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Right.
The time.
But
Okay.
so you also have the reality we had in segregation. Black people lived
together,
spaces,
right? Of the time, yeah.
Right. And you knew one another. You got to know one another.
Right.
So when people go like, "I'm not comfortable with somebody disciplining my child," that wasn't the case then, because you knew that person and you knew what they would do. And I've said quite a bit. There are things that adults used to say to us that we as adults can't say to children nowadays.
True.
And that is, "I know you know better."
Well, that's true too.
You can't say that to kids nowadays because you don't know that. You don't know their parents. You don't know what they've been taught. The people around my community and the communities I grew up in, they knew what I knew. And they knew what I had been taught by my parents. So all they had to do is reinforce it. We don't have that anymore.
Do you think a good part of that is because as we have advanced as people in general, and we start moving into different areas of the country for jobs? Do you think that we lost within that we lost our community, because as we move to jobs, obviously we're moving into different spaces where we're the minority in even you understand what I'm saying? We're a smaller number. We're even in a bigger, smaller number in a bigger
that's
village.
One part of it.
Okay.
But even in the communities that are predominantly black, we don't have that anymore.
That's true.
And what we have done.
But by that, excuse me, I'm sorry. Is it that okay, so what you're saying is like we didn't bring what we moved to, because a lot of, take for example, New Haven. I'm going to let you get back to your thought. Take for example, New Harville, where a lot of people migrated north to New Harville to work at Winchester Gun Factory in the Dixville area. They moved in to work at Winchester Gun Factory. You're saying that they did not bring that village mentality forward, because coming into a new space, I understand the people separated a lot through the latter 60s into 70s. I watched this where you saw my people where they were closer. When they went home to Alabama or to North Carolina or such, but away from there, they were different.
Of connection with the communities when you lived in certain places down south or whatever.
Okay.
You have known these people for a long time.
Generations, actually.
Years, that's what I meant. Generations, years, decades, whatever you want to call it. Right. When people start moving, I don't think it was a mentality. I think it was the natural, if I could use that word without, being criticized for it. You had a natural order of things. It was a family. It just was because of the time you've been there. But when people start moving, it's a new reality, and then we start making distinctions among ourselves based on the imaginary lines that are drawn in our country. Well, the person next door. Well, I moved here from North Carolina. They from South Carolina.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And that's when we left our villages. The mentality of our villages, we left it behind.
We did not re-engage what we had.
Exactly. That's exactly what I mean. So if you came from, no matter where you came from in the South, if we had brought that mentality here, now, is it because, and I'm trying to figure out what was the reasoning behind that?
I'm telling you what the reason is. That when you were there, you had this family.
Yeah, but that's right.
Hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
That had been there for a long time. It was a natural order of things. You had a long history of experiences. Everybody knew everybody's business and all this kind of stuff. You came here, people didn't have that same connection, but they didn't try to create it either.
But they did have that.
Try to create it.
But they did have that. They had it from a different space. Like people, I recall, and I'm talking right there in New Harville, where I knew people who were like from North Carolina, people who were from Alabama, people who were from, well, not Mississippi, but but they were from different parts of the South Carolina. And I saw how they would say people from South Carolina were the Geech, because they eat rice. They are them the Geech over there. Yeah, okay. So, but here you are. You're here, and we're all from the South. And I always wonder why those different those gems from the different communities did not come together here and create even more for us.
Because the South, being from the South,
Mm-hmm.
was not small enough to pull those people together in that way. It wasn't, I'm from the South, you from the South, hey, let's do this together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
You from South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
You from Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Small things they did differently.
Mm-hmm.
But they did not actively create a reality that they had down there with people that they knew for a long time.
Right.
It wasn't a natural thing. It needed to be worked on, and they didn't do it. And so the kids are left to the family they're born in.
Mm-hmm.
They leave the house. There's not a necessary connection with the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I tell this story all the time. When I was in foster care, we went on vacation one summer,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody broke into our house. The brother across the street
knew exactly who.
No, he didn't know who it was.
Oh.
For the rest of our vacation, because we on vacation, we don't even know this has happened until we get back. For the rest of our vacation, every night, he sat on our porch with a gun.
Oh, wow.
Every night.
Huh.
We didn't know this until we got home.
Right, okay.
Okay? That kind of thing did not transfer.
Right, and that's it right there. It did not transfer. You know, like, and I guess it's a process of migration because I look at when I came here to this country, to me it was, God, I wanted to know the American way of life, and I was willing to share my way of life, whatever I had at 11 years old. You know, I was willing to share that, but it was just such segregation within ranks. It was just ridiculous.
Right. And then you got people. Oh my gosh.
I know.
You have
they're coming for us. Go ahead.
People making connections based on organizations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, various organizations. People join the Links. People join the Masons, the Eastern Stars. You know, the college levels. You know, fraternities and sororities, that kind of thing. But it's still not a neighborhood thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's still not the people who live next door. Mm-hmm. So that kid has a whole lot of space to roam in without anybody having a connection with the family that they come from, and have the ability to discipline them. We had to look over our shoulders when we were kids, because even if mom and daddy wasn't there, sister and miss and Mr. so-and-so was there.
But we had that part was there. I got to say that in New Hallville, parents knew each other and they'll call and talk with each other for those purposes. But I'm talking about that shared culture, that true, like you said, that family essence, to bring that forward. And I guess it's because that's something that I grew up with, and I always wanted to share.
You're talking about a different time, because when you had that,
and I'm talking about in my family, my direct family, that's what I grew up with, and I always wanted to share that family experience.
But what about outside your house? Did that happen with your neighbors? Did you have that connection with your neighbors, with the people across the street, the people down the street, whatever?
It's funny. I had it with some people, and it's funny. Most of my friends came from New Haven housing projects. One was here last night on an interview with one of the kids.
Was that in your community?
In my community, but not the exact neighborhood. That was in Dixville.
Wasn't in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right.
Was not in the neighborhood. It was in
so it didn't just automatically go away.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't develop, and it didn't sustain in the way that it was, you know, for generations, you know, down south.
Mm-hmm. And
it began to weaken.
Mm-hmm.
And we would get more kids getting in trouble, you know, all this kind of stuff. I remember third grade.
Mm-hmm.
I got in trouble for something in third grade.
Mm-hmm.
My teacher came to the house, did not send a letter, did not call, you know, didn't pen a note to me, showed up at my house.
Black teacher?
Scariest, yes.
Black teacher,
I went
right?
to a segregated school up in third grade, all the way to third grade.
Okay, black teacher, right?
Right.
You know what? That teacher from Guilford or Brantford or East Haven, she ain't coming in.
Right.
And that's a big problem too.
Right.
A big part of the problem.
But first of all,
and
she
then
knew where I lived.
Right.
She knew that she could come.
Right.
She knew that she could sit on my couch
Mhm.
and tell my mother that I got in trouble, that I had already been punished for what I got in trouble, but that it still needed to be reported.
Mm.
You know, that sort of thing. We don't have that reality anymore. That's why you can have a whole bunch of kids right outside, this place mingling, and who has to break that up? Not the parents, the police.
Oh, Kermit, Carolina. Shout out to that brother.
Yeah, Kermit, Carolina. The next week, right?
Yeah.
Break it up next week. But I remember, and I tell this story all the time.
By the way, since you saw him down here last Friday, haven't been a problem since.
Right.
Haven't been a problem since.
Okay.
That man does his due.
Right.
Go ahead.
And that's both good and also problematic. Let's get back to that. But I do remember this general, Army general, went to one of these, big white churches, Presbyterian church, whatever, and one of these American holidays, right? And he was the main speaker for that Sunday service. And I'll never forget, he stood in that pulpit and said to that white congregation, "Your job is to make my job irrelevant."
And how many of them ever say that?
We should be saying the same thing about the police.
Yep.
Our job is to make their job irrelevant in terms of engaging with our children.
Yep.
Because we should be doing that. The kids, not only Carolina, having to come and break them up, they shouldn't have even had in their heads that was a possibility of something that they should be doing. And that's not even what I mean is problematic. What I mean is problematic is that what happens when something happens, or if something happens, God forbid, to Carolina?
Yeah. Is there someone else?
The lack of respect for adults in general.
Right.
And we worship this sort of one person savior type of thing, but that's not good. I had a woman living next door to us who was an alcoholic. We had to have the utmost respect for that woman. We could not talk back to her. We could not laugh at her. We could not do anything to her that we didn't do with any other adult. And she was a straight up alcoholic.
Preach! Videos and voices of the unheard. We are, of course, 2V Stream, a global youth media initiative. I got to thank you very much. The Right Reverend Pastor Minister Counselor Samuel T. Rossley. Thanks for coming in and keeping it ugly with, of course, me, Joe Ugly. And we'll be back tomorrow. We have Tai Wu. He is a psychiatrist, and he's going to be touching base with us on some more stuff as we keep it ugly here. Anything else that you would like to add? Go to church Sunday. I could tell him that much.
The fact that you need a reverend and a psychologist suggests that things are really bad.
Well, don't worry. I'm here for the exorcist. Moving right along. Copyright 2019, the present day, all rights reserved. No portion of this program or any content broadcast, streamed, or distributed via 2vstream.org or any past or current authorized distribution platform is allowed to be recorded, downloaded, or distributed in any form, including print, without the express written consent of its publishers and owners. 2vstream.org is a marketing and distribution outlet of Global Youth Media Initiative, all rights reserved. So I just suffered from a quick moment of dyslexia. Oh, God. It can happen to the best.
What did you say? V-Stream 2?
Okay, good people. We'll see you live tomorrow, 6 p.m. I know you can check us out. Don't forget to subscribe. Click that notification button as well so you can get all notifications of what's going on here with us on 2V Stream. Keep it ugly.